right, I would like to call this meeting to order. This is the regular school board meeting, Thursday, February 20th, 2020, in the Governor's Room of the Community Center. It is 6:30. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We would entertain a motion to consider and adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We would entertain any requests to speak on an agenda item from the audience. If you would like to do so, Sarah has cards, or there's cards in the back, and you can write your question on that and get that to Sarah. We'll move into the consent agenda. That is included in the packets. There's a paper copy in the back. Board members all received that ahead of time on our iPads. In the past, we have read through the consent agenda. This has caused many stutters and mispronunciations and has taken several minutes. And we don't technically have to do it. So we have all received those in the past. I'm not going to read through those. If anybody has an item that they would like to pull out of the consent agenda for further consideration, we can do that. Otherwise, we would take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move approval of our consent agenda this evening.
Second.
Any further discussion?
What,
John?
Talk about bills.
Yeah, the bills are all in order, just so you know.
Fantastic, thank you.
Sorry.
No. We have a motion, a second. Bills in order. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. What a special student spotlight we have this month. We have 3 students. The principals come up and introduce them.
Well, I get to introduce all of them.
Fantastic.
Okay, well, greetings from North Elementary School, where I have the honor tonight of introducing two third graders and a second grader tonight. There are just so many to choose from. I had to narrow it down, but I had to go with these 3, and we're going to call it Girl Power tonight, I think. Starting on my left right here, we have Freya Peterson, who's a second grader, and then Kaylin Lola, who's a third grader, and Maya Knutson, who's also a third grader. And these 3 individuals were chosen by their teachers because of their constant high marks on their report card. Kind of going above and beyond. Recently we had Arts and Academic Night, and some of them took it upon themselves to put a lot of submissions into visual arts or performing arts. And their teacher just says they are wonderful examples of leaders in the classroom. So when we were able to do this, I get to spend some time with our spotlight students and question them a little bit. And I always ask them, like, we know you love spending time at North Elementary School, but when you can't be there, like when it's closed and it's the weekend and stuff, like what do you choose to do with your free time? So that was the first question that I asked them. So Freya, what do you like to do in your free time when you can't be at North?
I like to watch movies, shopping at the mall, and spending time with my Gustavus big partner.
How about you, Ken?
I like to do Girl Scouts activities, and I really like to do cookie sales, and I like to play sports like golf, basketball, bowling, tennis, and snowmobiling.
Very good. How about you, Maya?
I like to play Legos, go sledding on my sledding hill, and playing outside on my swing set, and also going to my 4-H meetings.
Very good. And those are great examples of just leadership outside the building as well. And then when we met, I noticed a common theme through all of them, and they all love to bake and cook. So Freya, what's something that you always like to bake and cook?
I like to bake pizza with my dad and cook some Chinese food with my mom.
Very good. Kaylin?
I like to bake cake and cookies sometimes and cupcakes.
Okay, Maya?
And I like to bake cupcakes and sometimes cookies.
Very good. And then you usually bring them to your principal after making them. I'm serious. All right, and then another piece when I was able to sit down and talk with them, Freya, she already had written out her presentation for the evening, and it was wonderful. So I asked her if she'd be okay reading it tonight. So would you like to read that?
Mm-hmm. Hi everyone, I'm Freya. I'm a second grader from Norse Elementary. I came from China 3 years ago. I couldn't speak much English at that time. Now I speak English very well. My mom is teaching me Chinese. I work hard at school. I like reading and writing. I love art the best. I draw a lot of pictures. I'm respectful and responsible. I'm friendly to my class. I help others when they need help. After school, I study at home for 1 hour. Then I do something fun. Sometimes I play with my hamster. I like spending time with my family. I enjoy swimming, fishing, and skiing. St. Peter Library is also my favorite place to go. I often borrow books and movies there. Thank you for the great honor.
And then Kaylin, how about, so Kaylin, you submitted a number of pieces of artwork for Arts and Academic Night. Can you describe those a little bit?
I painted a owl that I made in an after-school art class, and a few years ago I made 2 flowers also at an after-school class where you put the top of a plate in flower shape into a lettuce spinner, and you put paint on, and then you spin it, then you add a stem, so I made 2 of those. And then in 2nd grade, I got a picture of a galaxy rocket. I made an art into the art show, so I put it in the Arts and Academic Night. And then I also did a tree I made with my grandma.
Very good. They were wonderful pieces of work. And then Maya, how about you? You are an avid reader. Like, you are currently reading what series or your favorite
A
series?
series of unfortunate events.
Yeah.
I like them because they're have a lot of activities and they're fun because they have mysteries
Yeah.
sometimes.
They're kind of gloomy too, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you 3 have some fans in the audience, right? You have parents here, right? And I believe we also have a teacher back there watching over your shoulder, right? So Freya, could you point out your parents and say what their names are?
That's my mom, and her name is Doris. That's my dad, and his name is Paul.
Very good. Kaylin, how about you?
That's my mom right there. Her name is Crystal.
Maya?
My mom's way back there. Her name is Kate, and my dad's name is Brian.
Kaylin, you have another fan back there.
That's Miss Steele in the back.
Great job, girls. Any
right.
questions from the board?
Well, I'm wondering if you guys would maybe think about becoming student representatives to the student council or to the school board from the student council someday, like Miss Izzy here.
Right
So
here, 12th grade.
that'd be a
That's
great
her
thing to
job.
be. We could use your help on the school board. If you're
They're
thinking about
in
that.
training right now.
Yeah, that's good. Perfect.
What's your hamster's name?
Sophia.
Oh, nice. Good name.
Well, congratulations. You guys did a great job tonight. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. You can stay for the rest of the meeting, but you don't have to. All right, thank you very much. That was wonderful. Moving on to the student council report.
I feel like mine's not going to be as good as that.
Tough act to follow.
All right.
Is there a hamster in it?
No. My mom never let me have one. As he said, my name is Izzy. I'm a senior at the high school. So one thing Mrs. Engeldinger and I were going to talk about a while ago, but we never got the chance to, is you guys probably saw on social media, we started a new campaign with Project for Teens called They Lied and We Know It about vaping. So that's something that's been like kind of busy in our schools at lunch, and then we also did it at the basketball game against Minnehaha Academy, and then also at one of the hockey games earlier this year. It's just helping to educate like our students about the risks of vaping and the lies that like vaping companies tell us in campaigns. So it's been really awesome. We also partnered with Cambria, which has been really cool. They've been able to give like our students, we gave out towels, stress balls, cookies one day at lunch, and t-shirts. So, and they also put a really cool kiosk, I don't know if you saw it on Facebook or anything, in our school. So that was super cool, and since I'm in Project for Teens, I was also able to be a part of that. So it was like a different leadership opportunity. And then recently we had Snow Week, which was like a bunch of activities in the high school. So we did pod decorating, and I don't think Mr. Hildebrand posted any pictures on Facebook, but so each grade gets a pod, and then you work with a teacher, and you like decorate a pod based. This year we did it on board games, and then we also got to like, came in on the weekends and stuff to like make it look special, and then we had a lot of games just so that we could, like it wasn't like the same thing like regular day, it made it more special. And then we had coronation and then different dress-up days throughout the week last week. So.
That's awesome.
So during that, the anti-vape campaign, is that when they brought in those giant, they look like beanbag
Yeah.
chair
Yeah.
furniture? Like, we should get those and have them all the time.
Yeah.
It looks super comfortable.
They were super comfortable.
I would get out of them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Well, we'll move on to our action items. The first is to consider approval of a memorandum of understanding between St. Peter Public Schools and APT Machine.
As an honored guests are coming up to talk about that, just a quick background. At your January 6th school board meeting, you approved the addition of 2 career technical education offerings, one in Saints Manufacturing, the other work-based learning. Those both require that we have business partnerships, intentional business partnerships and industry partnerships in the community. And this is an area that I know we've been talking about for some time, and it's an exciting night to have it come to fruition and be in front of us. And with that, Mrs. Iggledinger, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, we're really excited to be partnering with Brian Mayo and APT. Corey Odland is here in her role as our workforce development coordinator. So she's been out kind of pounding the pavement and figuring out who best we can partner with at the high school, not just in manufacturing areas, but in all. And this really made sense. Brian has kids, has had a son come through the system. His daughter's a senior, and he's always been really interested in our metals and manufacturing program at the high school. So now with the new facility, the new space, Mike Reeser on board, who's really willing to partner with outside companies, it was a perfect opportunity. So we were really excited that he was willing and able to partner with the high school. Along with that came a long list of pretty expensive machinery and equipment for the high school, and Mr. Reeser and Corey helped write a grant through MDE, through Future Ready CTE, and so we got a $45,000 grant for, I will let you speak to the equipment. This is where my expertise ends and yours begins. So Brian, if you want to talk just a little bit about what the partnership, about what we hope it will look like, that would be great.
Well, I guess I was contacted here a few months ago about starting this, and back when the school was being built, I kind of wanted to be involved and hopefully get some machining and some more metalworking stuff going, and it didn't happen at that time, but when the opportunity came up now, it was a good time to do it. I've got a little bit more free time now, so I'm hoping I can be a little more involved and help out as much as I can. And I know the school did with that grant, they did purchase a mill, which there's basically two types of equipment. You got a mill and a lathe. So we've got one component of it now, and then hopefully down the road, another component can be added. And the company they got it from is big into helping schools and stuff like that. So I think there is opportunities out there to pursue more and keep this growing. The conversation with Reeser and Dr. Olson and that was kind of to get the Saints manufacturing going and be able to self-generate some money and stuff. And there's a lot of ideas out there of different products and stuff that can be made, whether it's made specifically for certain things or I know there was talk about stuff that could be sold in a store up at the school, things like that, and to go out in the community and basically be somewhat of a job shop or do work for other businesses in the area. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's great for the school. They're with the South Central College nearby, and they have a great program for machine tool technology. I think the high schools need to be feeder programs for that, and they're struggling with enrollment and stuff to get some of these students into.
Another addition to the program, Mr. Reeser, as of fall of 2020, will have his work experience license. So potentially kids who are interested can potentially earn credits going out, for example, and spending some time at APT and other manufacturing places for credit. So
For the last
that's
couple of years,
exciting,
we've
too.
been doing internships. We've been getting a few students from Mankato East, Mankato West. I think we've got one from St. Peter right now, but it works out well. They come out and put their time in and learn some stuff, and it's been going really well.
Really relevant learning experiences, and that's really what we're
Yeah.
after in a program like this.
And they get paid to do it.
And they, yeah, exactly. So it's double bonus, right? So, Corey, a little bit about kind of how you're reaching out to area businesses and in the region with programs like this.
Yeah, definitely. So my role, I've been in this role just over a year as Workforce Development Coordinator. So it's a grant-funded position through South Central Service Cooperative, working with St. Peter Schools, Le Sueur Henderson, and Tri-City United Schools. So my role is really that liaison between the employers and the school districts to find opportunities for students to explore careers and gain career-related experiences. So this idea of moving forward is something as big as Saints manufacturing is really exciting. It's kind of easy when you've got a supportive administration and a willing employer partner, and a very enthusiastic teacher. Mr. Racer is going to be great with this. And so this is probably the biggest thing we've done. Other things are getting students out in the communities to shadow, and then also embedding some career-related projects in the classroom. So Mr. Schoenborn in his entrepreneurship class has done a couple projects with Kerfoot Canopy Tour out of Henderson, some marketing and social media projects that they've done. So these are some things we've been working on.
So, board members, questions? Anything you might have?
Don't ask me about the mill.
Well, Brian, you and I we were neighbors and we've talked about this. And we're getting closer, you think, to a state-of-the-art learning facilities as far as manufacturing goes?
Yeah, I think, this initial purchase of that machine is gonna be a huge step. The next step, we're gonna have to purchase the lathe portion of it.
Okay.
And then it kind of hits all the targets that kind of need to be hit. So it's a huge step, and I think it's going to be great for the school and to get some students interested in that stuff.
I appreciate your helping us kind of guide us in the direction that we need to go with what's going on now in manufacturing. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very excited that you, so what's the lathe cost?
It's about the same. So
About the same.
Yeah, I think the quotes were right in that $30,000 to $40,000, and then
Okay.
there's support equipment to it, but that's fairly minimal and can be purchased as things go along. And kind of the good thing about this is if it can start self-generating some money, and there's things that can be made and sold,
Yep.
or obviously if I have things that I think the school can do, then I can send it. And I know that hasn't all been worked out yet, how the payment stuff can work, but I'm sure it will get figured out. And
Not to put the cart before the horse, but there's going to be a second round of this Future Ready CTE grant for fall. We found out about it just a short time before the grant was due, for things that could be implemented right away the second semester of the school year. So, I think maybe a lot of schools in the region weren't quite ready to write a grant, and we were. It was perfect timing. So there is another round of this that hopefully we'll be ready to get that laid.
Well, it's really, really exciting, and thank you, Brian, for your willingness to participate in this program and educational offering with us. I've had an opportunity to get around the state of Minnesota a lot in the last year, and I've seen a few of these programs, but it really is the kind of the cutting-edge high school program that we're going to be able to offer to give our students the kinds of learning experiences, not only in manufacturing and machining, but in running a business that will be really, really important. So we're very excited about it, and excited about having you as a partner. So thank you.
Yeah,
looking
thank you
forward
so
to
much.
it.
So recommend your approval of the formal agreement with APT Machining.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously.
Thanks.
I think the first thing that they're going to make are actually parts for a 19th century threshing treadmill for the Oliver Kelly Farm. So you can literally make anything. So.
Yep. They should be able to do that.
Good. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Corey, thank you.
Action item number 2, consider approval of superintendent search, staff, and community interview teams. Yes. As part of the superintendent hiring process, because we still have to do that, we thought it was important to have some added involvement besides just the school board. And so we, through our personnel committee, sat down and thought about a community committee and a staff, school district staff committee, and the types of representation we would want. So when we thought about St. Peter is made up of a lot of different organizations and individuals, and how could we best represent the community? And so we came together as a personnel committee. We came before the board at the last meeting and said, we think we should have a representative from the nonprofit community. We should have representatives from the business community. We should have other representatives. And so the board said that looks like a good idea, move forward. And so we got together again in the personnel committee and recommended some individuals. We have asked them ahead of time, because to not ask them and have them find out about this on TV would be cruel. So we do have a slate of folks for the community committee and the staff committee that we are excited to bring to the board today, and they can't open my iPad fast enough. So just to read those into the record, we're looking at the school district staff committee. We're introducing these names for approval. Mark Bachman, Operation and Maintenance Supervisor. Jeff Dietrich, Head Custodian at the middle school. Darren Doherty from North. Annette Engeldinger from the high school. Angie Fogel, paraprofessional from the high school. Keith Hansen, teacher at the high school. Jake Malls, teacher at the middle school. Kim Meyer, Principal Secretary at South Elementary. Jody Nixon, teacher at North Elementary. Nativ Prafke, Special Programs, HR Administrator, Early Childhood, several other hats probably. Tim Regner, Business Manager. Maripsa Romero, Cultural Liaison. Afi Sagat, Cultural Liaison with the district. and Mary Thompson, the head cook at South Elementary, with Etive Prafke serving as the chairperson of that committee. And then I will also read the names of the community interview team that we are recommending. Mohammed Abdul Qadir, who represents nonprofit community in St. Peter. Alex Bocanegra, student at the high school. Teresa Hildebrandt, the business community. Ed Lee, Chamber of Commerce. Izzy Lind, student. Chris Marlowe, standing school committee. Brian Mayo from business community. Rachel Moore, also from the business community. Tracy Pyman from the Booster Club. Todd Prafke from the city of St. Peter. Gabriella Rohill from the Senior Center. Megan Rubel from Gustavus. Bernadette Volk, who's on standing school committee. And Keith Winter, who represents the agricultural community. And Keith would actually be the chair of that committee. So, thank you. Do we have any initial discussion with those? So they would join us on the 5th and 6th of March for interviews.
I move the approval of the superintendent search staff and community interview teams, as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
I think it's a smart way to go about doing this. Ultimately, the school board is the committee ultimately making the decision. However, this allows us to be more well-informed than if we were just all on our own. A lot of great people in both these groups that we have a lot of trust in, so I'm looking forward to their insight.
Great. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to action item number 3, consider approval of the protocol for the community and staff interview teams. And I can read that into the record as well. This is on page 30 of your packets, but protocol is as stated. Number 1, a representative staff and community interview team will be appointed by the school board. You just did that. The chairperson will need to attend the MSBA-led interview training on March 2nd, 2020. I'm sure they've both been made aware of that and are available. The chairperson will conduct the interview for his or her respective team. All team members will provide input to the chairperson on the perceived strengths of each candidate interviewed in round 1, and we've talked at length at the school board about really focusing on strengths of candidates. And then finally, the chairperson will share the team input with the full school board following the completion of round 1 interviews.
And I think the way that we've talked about that is you would deliberate each candidate that is interviewed in the first round, and the board would have the first go at identifying strengths and matches for the position based on the profile that you've selected. Once you've gone through candidate A, as an example, then the opportunity would be available for both the staff committee chairperson and the community committee chairperson to provide the same kind of information to you that they would have collected from their respective interview teams. So I think that's a good process. It's a good way to have you gain some additional insights from different perspectives about the candidates. And again, asking questions that you've identified based on the candidate profile and the stakeholder input that was received.
Thank you. These interviews, again, are March 5th and 6th, 3:30 to 6:30 at the high school. The board interviews are public meetings, just like every meeting of the board. So if the public wants to show up and sit in the audience for that, that is welcome. We won't be taking questions or communication from the public at those meetings, but they are public meetings. Do we have a motion in this second?
I move the approval of the protocol for our community and staff interview teams.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? John, you look like you have.
Nope. I was just going to say that we do have some closed meetings, but
Yes.
for privacy issues and personnel and things like that. But
Right. They do start open, we close. them.
yes, yeah. So
If we open them, we leave.
I just didn't want people to show up for a meeting that was going to be closed.
Right, absolutely. We do have a motion and a second to approve the protocol for community and staff interview teams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Number 4 in the action items, consider approval of the fund balance reserve goal.
On an annual basis, you're asked to consider a fund balance reserve goal. And your board policy 004.13, managing the fund balance process, requires you to adopt your fund balance reserve goal prior to March 1st. So we're close. Being the board meeting is February 20th and got shifted due to the President's Day holiday. Now, you've had a number of discussions over the course of this fiscal year about the fund balance. You've looked at 4-year rollouts. In all of those 4-year rollouts, at least for the foreseeable future, fiscal year 21, fiscal year 22, and so forth, you've identified a 60-day fund balance reserve goal. So the recommendation, based on the discussion we've had at a number of meetings, including your special school board meeting held on February 3rd, would be to maintain the 60-day fund balance reserve goal. So I'll stop, and you might have comments. Treasurer Carlson, anything?
No, I think that we need to have safeguards in case, I mean, while the economy's doing great, it hasn't always been great, and probably will come a point where it's not going well again, and we don't want to get caught in a position where we're not able, or where we're really living month to month trying to get through, and a lot of school districts are in tougher positions than we are, and we don't want to go down that road. So.
And just as a little bit of added background, I mean, with that identification of your fund balance reserve goal, that kicks in place our rollout strategy to be able to maintain that 60-day fund balance reserve as we move over the next several fiscal years. And we've done that in terms of the draft rollouts you've seen. But again, this gives us the clear go-ahead to continue with that particular approach.
And further, the number isn't just arbitrary. It's been recommended to us by auditors, and MSBA has spoke about it in the past. So it's not just a number that we throw out there. It's important. That being said, I will say that if we need one more piece of machinery and we've got a possible grant to cover it, I would be up for 59 days just to make sure we can buy that.
I was going to tell you before that, you could be looking at that as a 2-for-1. You got one free, and you know, so
Yeah.
that's another approach to look.
And I'm only half kidding. I think if that's the piece of machinery that we still need to be elite, I think we need to. And this is probably a discussion for another time in a committee, but I think it's important enough that, you know, if we have to come back and change it to 59 days just because we want to get that piece of equipment now and then switch it back to 60 when we get the grant, I think that would be something that the Finance Committee should consider.
Yeah, I think that speaks to our decision-making process, and we've had lots of conversations before tonight.
Right.
We're going to vote on it in a minute, but we've been talking about it a lot, and this is something that comes out in every budget rollout, and, you know, we do want the flexibility as a board to be able to make purchases, and having a fund balance if we're looking at a rollout where, you know, our enrollment isn't growing or it's shrinking and we're going to have to make some adjustments. We have 1, 2, 3 years to make those adjustments, not, well, we have to make drastic cuts in the next month or, you know, we're insolvent. So But on the other hand, we don't want to have a fund balance so low that we can't cash flow and other things. And we don't want to have one so high that we're not using voters' money in the way that they intended. So 60, along with the auditor's recommendation, I think is really that sweet spot for St. Peter. And I think when Dr. Olson took over as superintendent the first time, you had like 3.5 days of fund balance.
That's it. 60 is much better.
Do we have a motion in a second? I thought we did.
I'll move.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. All right, action item number 5. Consider approval of the school board meeting dates and times for July 2020 through June 2021.
The schedule that you have in your packet really reflects the same basic schedule that you've used over the last several years. Dates obviously just shift because of changing calendars and so forth. But you have your normal school board meetings on the third Monday of each month. There are a couple of changes. One is in January because of your organizational meeting and a potential conflict with the Minnesota School Boards Association Leadership Conference. And the other is in February, where you'd have a conflict with President's Day. But the schedule is, again, the same. And just note that that at the bottom of your schedule, you always included, I think that's a great point, that the school board reserves the right to change or modify the meeting calendar based on the needs of the school board or the school district. I would recommend your adoption of the board meeting dates, times, calendar for fiscal year 21.
I move we approve our school board meeting dates and times for year 2020 and 21.
I second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Action item number 6, consider approval of 4-year comprehensive long-term capital projects plan. Something else we're going to talk about a lot.
You've had the next 2 items, the 4-year capital projects plan and the special capital projects budget plan, in front of you really since last fall. So you've had them in front of you at, I think, at least 2 finance committee meetings, a study session or 2, and you had an opportunity to discuss the plans in more detail at your February 3rd special school board meeting that we had just several weeks ago. But the idea is to ensure that we have a clear plan with the big ticket items that we need to accomplish in terms of maintenance and care of our buildings and facilities. So you really have the 2019-2020 projects, 2020-21 projects, 2021-2022 projects, and 2022-2023 projects. The most important list.
I'm really impressed.
I was hoping I wasn't going to really goof that up.
Nailed it.
The most important of that list are the projects for this coming summer. And really those projects focus on the middle school greenhouse roof, some flooring in the cafeteria in room 311 at the middle school, a reconfiguration of the middle school media center where you'll be adding some flex rooms and some small group conference rooms, some light and ceiling replacement, and repair of some ceilings and lights in the first floor, and then some gymnasium lobby repair. You'll recall that one of the goals that you had several years ago was to focus your big ticket projects in one particular building if possible. That is one of the key reasons why you elected to have an early start to last school year, so you're out prior to June 1st. It's really important as you reach out to contractors and to construction folks. They're ready, willing, and able to get at things on June 1st, maybe not as ready, willing, and able to get at things in the middle of July. So it's really important that we have the go-ahead at this point in February so that we can get contractors lined up, get the best quotes or bids that are possible, and move forward with those projects. Questions that anybody might have?
Mr. Doherty, I see that you have one thing on this list, but you did have 3 students of the month tonight,
Yes.
so it
So it made up
balances
for it, and then some.
Well, you actually got last year, Mr.
Yes,
Doherty.
just maybe some paint this summer.
So this all averages out to be about 400,000? Is that, because that's what we have for the long-term maintenance, right?
That's the goal. And one of the things you'll see is in the very last year of the 4 years, the total drops significantly. And that's because you can borrow ahead on your long-term facilities maintenance revenue. But then once you've sort of borrowed from that bucket, you need to fill the bucket up again. So beginning in 2022, 2023, you'll have smaller projects, smaller number items, so that the bucket of money can fill up, and then we'll be ready for our next round of roofs and parking lots and tennis courts and all things Minnesota that need to be repaired and buildings and grounds.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Action item number 7. Consider approval of special capital projects budget plan.
Again, as I mentioned, you've had these items in front of you a number of times over the past school year. You'll also recall that we've used a capital projects levy for the past 10 years to provide revenue for a number of our buildings and grounds projects. Since that levy was originally passed, the long-term facilities maintenance revenue levy has come in, and you've been able to use that. So you had your last capital projects levy a year ago. There are about $120,000 left in the account, if you will, from the capital projects levy. And in working with the Finance Committee and the Facilities Committee, and in addition, the Co-Curricular Committee, one of the goals has been to do some upgrades to Floyd B. Johnson Field. So in specific, there are plans in place to replace a scoreboard. We need to remove and replace the long jump pits because they're inside the track and have some cement around them and prove to be dangerous for soccer players and football players and the like. So those are the 2 primary projects that are being planned to have taken care of prior to the start of next school year. And those numbers are fairly strong estimates, but they're going to shift some in terms of dollars. But I think that those 2 items, the scoreboard, remove and replace the long jump pit, will take most of the remaining capital projects funds that you designated for that. So again, I'd recommend your approval of the special projects budgets plan. But in addition to that, you'll note that you have the $200,000 that are the remaining funds from the bond to build the new high school. And in discussions that you've had a number of times, again, over the past several months, the focus has been on having some outdoor restrooms that are located in the southeast corner of the Community Spirit Park, which would be near the baseball field, near the soccer field, the junior varsity football and athletic fields, and so forth. So plans are in place to get some quotes, bids if necessary for that project, but it will stay within the $200,000 at this point that are set aside. And so, again, the special capital projects, the Floyd B. Johnson Field enhancements, and the restroom building and Community Spirit Park are what are being recommended.
Thank you, Dr. Olson.
Yes.
Dr. Olson, where are we at with, because it's my understanding the city is going to build a similar building. How similar? I mean, are we trying to build pretty much the same type of facility?
We're trying to have the same kinds of facilities, so they're kind of on opposite corners of the Community Spirit Park. So ours kind of right off the southeast corner of the high school. Theirs in the northwest corner of the Community Spirit Park, near the softball complex on the park and the tennis courts, et cetera. So I think it's important. I know I've been to a number of events and watched people trying to decide if they want to go into the porta potties or not, and so I think this will be a good upgrade.
Absolutely. Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the special capital projects budget plan. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. That concludes the action items for tonight. I don't want to jinx anything, but, and the clock's back, so that's that moves us to information items, school board committee appointments for 2020. This was communicated earlier to school board members. We don't need to formally approve them. If you have any questions or comments, we can entertain those. I don't have anything further to add.
Nope, I think you've got a good, a robust number of committees that'll certainly keep you busy for the next year.
Absolutely. All right, information item number 2, first reading of legislative priorities for 2020. This is a handout to just read what our legislative priorities are. John, you have been on that committee of one, and you continue to serve. I am happy to read these, or if you would like to read them.
At your pleasher, whichever you
We
wish.
could rotate like a duet.
I can just talk about it a little bit. With the legislature getting going, Dr. Olson and I got together and talked about what some of the priorities are and what is being talked about up at the legislature. And we came up with this list of 6. We spent about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour discussing different things. Other things were left off. Basically, what we're looking for is feedback from the board on the order that we put them in, because that is actually an order that we will talk about them. On the board copy, it talks about, it has a note under each of them. When we talk, that's mainly a reminder for me and for Dr. Olson, so that when we do go up, it seems that we get better response when we have a story that goes with each of the points. So the story isn't necessarily for anybody but Dr. Olson and us, just to remind us of our points of emphasis when we're visiting with our legislators. But number 1 is increase the equalization factor for the operating referendum, debt service levies, and local optional revenue. I'm going to actually, this one we talked about, why don't you talk about that a little bit, because it gets into an area that you're a little more versed in.
You know, it's the situation in Minnesota is that a dollar of tax doesn't, or tax request doesn't impact everybody the same way depending upon which district you're in. So districts that are high property wealth districts can raise more money with less impact on various taxable kinds of properties. So one of the key examples that really struck me over the last couple of years is if we went back to planning for the school bond referendum here in St. Peter, you were using an average price home in St. Peter at the time. The average price home was $160,000. You were asking for a $59 million building bond. The $59 million building bond would impact the average price home of $160,000 in St. Peter at that time to the tune of $225 a year. Now, I did some work with the Moorhead Public Schools on their building project a year ago. They were seeking a $110 million bond referendum as opposed to the $59 million bond referendum that we had. Their average price home was $200,000, so $40,000 more than our average price home in 2015. The tax impact for a $110 million bond on a $200,000 home was $94 a year. So what happens is it's easier for the tax homeowner in a place like Moorhead to vote yes on a bond referendum because it doesn't impact their property as much. So what the equalization factor does is it tries to level that playing field a little bit. So it will say that the state will pay a larger portion of the tax bill for a place like St. Peter, so it doesn't impact adversely the property owners as much as the example that I just gave you. So equalization is a really important thing, and it's not just in terms of bond referendums, it's on operating referendums, it's on long-term facilities maintenance referendums, it's on a number of things. So that's a really important one to push for, because it's really a fairness issue.
Number 2 is to increase the general education basic formula by 1% for the 2020-21 school year. This is, because we're in a surplus, this is a time where we could try to catch up to where we need to be with school funding. And currently, 93% of Minnesota's 330 school districts receive less aid per pupil today than they did in 2003, adjusted for inflation. So that's why it's such a high spot on there, and because there is a surplus. It's something they don't normally consider in the second year, but is something that is definitely on the table for this this session.
So that would be 1% on top of what was approved in the budget last year.
Correct.
2%.
Yep. Allow school board renewal of all existing and future operating levies. This is something that the city and county has the right to do that the school board does not currently. And we want to see if we can't find out why they've made that distinction, and see if we can't get that changed. Number 4, fully fund Minnesota's portion of the cross subsidy of special education. Currently, the St. Peter School District allocates $1.9 million out of our general fund to cover mandated special education costs. We think that if something's going to be mandated, you better supply the funding to pay for that. And it is a thing that has happened in the past that is going to take time to slowly get reversed. Align Minnesota special education rules and statutes with federal law in order to reduce special education paperwork mandates. Some elements of this were brought up last year in last legislative session, and but basically we want our special education teachers to spend more time with the students. It is. In talking to special ed teachers, I mean, it is a ton of paperwork, and that the time that they spend on that is time not spent with the students, and that's where their expertise. That's why they got into special education. So that's a big one. And lastly, refrain from passing new underfunded or unfunded legislative mandates. Kind of relates to number 4. But each school district in Minnesota is an independent school district with unique needs. Allowing locally elected school boards, it's important to allow the locally identified school boards, elected school boards, to have the ability to see how to meet those needs. And so, again, talking about legislative mandates. Dr. Olson, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you did an excellent job. Yeah, Board Member Carlson. I think that it covers a variety of different things, and it really gets at some of the key issues, I think, that impact not only our school district, but our school district taxpayers in a lot of different ways.
And I would appreciate if anybody has any feedback to let me know, and if there's something that's missing that you think is important, we'd like to bring this back for a final reading for the March meeting, and then head up to the St. Paul that following week.
I like the priorities laid out. I like the order that they're in. So I've got no
Great.
feedback.
I think you'll be busy that week.
Yeah, I'll be busy.
Thank
I hope.
you, Director Carlson. All right, that was an informational item, first reading. Going to informational item number 3, the Minnesota School Boards Association Local Central Resolution.
It should be control as opposed to central, so I missed that. and I
Oh,
apologize.
no worries.
The local control resolution is something that the School Board Association is asking individual school boards to pass, and it really gets at what Board Member Carlson talked about on the last proposed legislative priority. Refrain from, number 3, which is allowing school boards the renewal, nope, I'm missing it. Which one is it? Unfunded mandates.
Yes,
Yeah.
number 6.
So unfunded mandates allow local school boards to make decisions. I think there are about 38 school boards in Minnesota so far that have passed the local control resolution. So I wanted to include it for informational purposes, for you to take a chance to look at it, discuss it if you'd like. Be something that, before we come back, as maybe John and I meet again with the legislative committee, to consider at whether or not you'd want to take a look at formally adopting this resolution in March. But again, it really gets at allowing our school board the local decision-making authority and restricting any decisions made at the state level to allow you to respond to the needs of your students, your residents, and the school district as a whole. Questions on it?
You said 33?
I think 33 roughly, and that was maybe a week or so ago, so I think it's really getting out there right now.
Yeah,
But as boards have reformed, I think there'll be more and more that will pass this.
yeah.
And this is to give MSBA some strength in their negotiations and lobbying efforts up at the Capitol.
Yeah, if they can end up saying, you know, we've had, pick a percent up, 75% of the school boards in Minnesota have passed this resolution and support local control. That says a lot, because state legislators listen to school board members, because school board members, and you guys know this, are locally elected. You've been elected by voters, and you have some clout with them when you talk to them about things. So that'd be a really important piece to consider, I think.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Any further discussion? Now, we move into reports, principals.
Absolutely. Get up in here.
Excuse me. Well, good evening, everyone. Things are happening in early childhood. We have our conferences coming up. Yeah, we're cozy. This is what teen looks like.
I am Dean.
So we have conferences coming up next week, and then the week of March 5th and 6th. So we're excited to have parents come in and talk with teachers and see how well their kids are doing at school. We also have our school readiness open house on Saturday, February 29th from 9 until 11, and that's the opportunity for families to come in, see our center, get information about classes for next year. We're already planning for next year. Ask questions, get registration papers, etc. So we're excited about that. And then with my special programs hat on, today was our first day of our second session of STARS Academy for kindergarten through 4th grade. And STARS Academy is an after-school targeted services program that we qualify through our work as an ALC. And so we started K-4 today, and then next week we'll start our 5-8 program. So we'll look for good reports on how the first day went and hit it hard next week with all of our classes.
Good evening, and these people probably won't tell you, but they probably can smell me because I just came off of McTeacher night at McDonald's. So it was a perfect night for us to sit close, don't you think? It's wonderful. Yes. And it was a fish wish. So we had another banner crowd out there, and I think they were happy when I left because I created a parking spot for them. Someone came in and said, "We'll go through the drive-through. This is crazy." So it's a wonderful night. The kids are so surprised to see us at McDonald's. So it really is fun. So kudos to the parent council who makes the arrangements, and then the funds from that night. And we typically do raise about $500 for our parent council that evening. But I just want to say thanks to the teachers too, because they're there, and boy, those people at McDonald's make the job look easy. We can say we need to go back to school because it is not near as easy as it looks. We also had a very busy last couple of weeks. We celebrated the 100th day of school, along with an early release and a late start, and Valentine's Day, which includes candy. And if that is the biggest holiday in the building because they know they're getting candy. So it was kind of nice that it was on an early release day, and that worked out well for everyone. Our access assessments are continuing for our students, our ELL students. And last Friday, during our early release time, we had the opportunity for Dave Rebar and Laura Zender had requested a grant from the Ed Foundation, and they received a grant to create sensory boxes for all of the classrooms. So Dave and Laura, along with Brittany Galetka, did a session on just working with students of trauma. And the more we learn about the effects of trauma on students and how we can serve their needs, it was just a very, very great time for us to just be reminded about the fact that kids don't always tell us what they need, and we have to look for behaviors, and we have to look for ways that we can help support them so that they can learn. So thank you to them for doing that. And just a reminder that kindergarten registration packets have been mailed out. If people have not received them, they can call South, and we'll make sure that they get one. And kindergarten registration night will be March 19th.
All right, greetings from North Elementary. Before I get into North, Doreen mentioned the access assessment going on, which is actually K-12. That's going on throughout the district right now, and that's an annual assessment required by the state for language acquisition, which I always include in like the annual report on student achievement. So, yeah, and before we know it, we'll have some MCAs going on at the high school, and then the rest of the district, 3rd grade through 11th. So that's right upon us. As far as North goes, we had a great arts and academic night on February 3rd. 3 students will be going on to regional competitions for the science fair at MSU, which is always exciting. 30 students put visual displays on, and then 15 performances in the gym. So this is all just voluntary. Like, there is no like coordinating of kids to do this. They just sign up. It's just because they want to do it. And 2 of the 3 that were here tonight did that, and that's what I think is so cool about it. It's just pure raw kid talent. You just let them go. Also, we have I Love to Read Month going on right now. A favorite on Tuesday and Thursday is a mystery reader during announcements throughout the building. So somebody in the building, the kids have to try to figure out who the reader is on the announcements each morning. So they're reading some clips out of some poetry or sections out of a book. And it's always Mrs. Berg for some reason. It's never Mrs. Berg that she didn't want to read any of them, but they always pick Mrs. Berg. I don't know what the pattern with that is. And then the 4th grade gets to take off on February 27th for their kindness retreat, which will be at Johnson Hall. And that is always a great retreat. Youth Frontiers puts it on. The 4th grade just come back just all geared up and just ready to roll. And kids that potentially, maybe had some conflict during the year have just flipped over a new leaf after that. I think, it's just a great way to kind of start the send-off to middle school, knowing that, yep, they were leaders throughout the year this year. They'll be the little fish in the big ocean next year, but at least it gives them a good solid send-off and kind of a restart to kind of get through the end of the year with shining colors. So, Mr. Graff.
Thank you, Mr. Dory.
Transition for you.
Transition. Last Wednesday, our 7th graders presented their History Day projects. This year's History Day theme was Breaking Barriers. So students did an extended research project on a topic or a person or an event or a person that they felt represented breaking barriers in history. And what was exciting about this year is we had a ton of community support. We had 3 MSU student tutors who were with us just about every day of that project. We had city council members who supported students on various projects. We had Representative Jeff Brand with us for a full day, talking about his role, talking about how he loves history, and he actually helped kids fine-tune their projects. We had Kate Martins from the Treaty Center, who was also with us just about every single day supporting kids. And then we had members from the League of Women Voters also supporting. So that project had a lot of support this year, and we really appreciate those folks for taking their time to help us. Overall, we had about 25 to 30 kids. Not everybody has said if they want to or not, but have the opportunity to move on to regions with that. Today we sent 14 middle school students to Concordia Language Spanish Immersion Camp. They left at 10:30 today, and they'll come back on Sunday. And Englehorn promised me to bring them all back. We have, I think it was 14 middle school students and 31 high school students, so right around 45 students on that trip this weekend. A while back, we offered some training on the graduate portrait through a micro-credentialing program. And one of the people who took part in that was Shay Rourke-Cassie. And we're seeing some of the fruits of that training in a project that he introduced today. And the project is his food and nutrition unit in his 7th grade health class. And the project was developed in conjunction with dietitians from River's Edge and Hy-Vee. And the project culminates in them providing a meal plan for not only just their family, but also individuals with specific health needs. So really cool kind of seeing how that's all coming together. And then lastly, just another plug, March 6th, we have our 5/8 theater performance of How to Speak Minnesotan. The students will do 3 shows, 2 for our students during the day, and then 1 at 7 o'clock at night for the public. So hopefully we see you all there.
Right after superintendent.
The high school is busy as always. Today was an important day. We had representatives, a bus of our FFA students, along with Mr. Reeser. His name is coming up a lot tonight, and Gina Lilienthal attended the House Ag Committee introduction of Landon's Law. Michelle and James Gran were introducing that to the House, and Jeff Brand invited the St. Peter FFA and any other students who are interested in attending that. And Ms. Lilienthal and Mr. Reeser came back. They were really, really happy and excited and emotional about how the day went for themselves and the kids who got to be there as well. So that was a really nice opportunity for our kids. We in the CTE world, Warren Peterson, for the first time, took some of his building trade kids to the Building Trades Convention at the Minneapolis Convention Center, where they took part in they built sheds and playhouses. They had 2 days to do it, and it wasn't a competition, but and then I believe that these playhouses were being auctioned off, and stayed overnight, had a great time, and they made it home on one of those tricky weather days that we were waiting to hear that they had gotten back safely. So those guys had a great time. Opportunity Day is coming up on Tuesday, which is the ACT, pre-ACT, job shadowing, and heading off to check out universities. That's Tuesday, and next week is also Thursday, our Farm to School Day, which is, and also in conjunction with that is a career fair in areas of manufacturing and agriculture. That's a really great day to come out for lunch if any of you are available. I'll take you through that line and get you lunch. The hog that's being served that day was Landon Grant's, and so it's also another kind of cool reminder to this school about Landon. Mock trial is off to state. If Bob Meeks were still on the board, I'm sure that he would be doing.
We got an email.
Yes.
We know. He would be very excited to talk about that tonight. Last week we had parent-teacher conferences at the high school, and as you know, as our students go through the system, it's harder and harder to engage parents in parent-teacher conference night. Our student services office put on a curriculum fair, heading into registration time and a registration information session, 2 of them throughout the night for the parents. It was also sub-zero weather that night, so we will continue to try to offer things that parents are interested in attending.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kraft, I've noticed the changes in the middle school lobby outside the gymnasium, and looks good. It's nice that new to the school space feels different than it once did as the high school space. So.
Yeah, we recently had the addition of benches,
Yeah.
built-in benches, so students have a spot to kind of hang out after lunch and then before and after school.
Yeah, that's cool. Are there any other changes coming along the way? Or I don't know.
We're hoping at some point to get some cafe-style tables in there, because that's where our students hang out in the morning before school starts, just to make it a little bit more comfortable. We also have a few students hang out after school down there. It gives them a spot to maybe put their books to study.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. Superintendent Olson.
I have 3 things I want to cover tonight in the informational piece. The first one is thank you to all the school board members. It is School Board Recognition Week, February 17th through the 24th. And we appreciate all of your hard work and dedication to our students and to the school district and to all of the time you spend away from families and jobs to do the good work of educating our students to the level you do. So thank you very much for that. Secondly, we would really like to see if we can set a study session in April. Now, I recognize how busy a time this has been with all of the extra meetings surrounding the superintendent search, but we really need a concentrated period of time in a study session to start talking about all things budget and potential operating referendum, and if that operating referendum is kind of targeted for November of 2020, which is what you've talked about. So we've thrown out a couple of different dates. We've thrown out April 6th. We've thrown out April 7th. We tried to see if we could do it via email, and we had some success, but I thought we'd just talk about it tonight. Any thoughts that anybody has? It wouldn't necessarily need to be a night meeting, depending upon, we can make whatever work that you want to have work.
Well, the 10th is Good Friday. And that might not work with folks.
Yep.
But
That week, the 6th is really, unless we want to meet on Wednesday, the 6th is the only one that works. I have tennis matches on all the other days. So, and I know there's the
world's best workforce.
If there's any chance that meeting could move a day, I mean.
The world's best workforce would really, we could, as I was just thinking about that, we could probably still hold the world's best workforce meeting and a study session at the same time.
Okay.
I'm open to anything, whatever works.
April 6th seem to work?
yeah, are we talking evening?
Yeah.
Yep. That would work the best for me.
Sure.
Middle School Media Center, 6:30.
6:30.
And really, the focus of that particular study session will be to, again, take another look at the 4-year rollout, to start looking at your budget adjustment target for next year, and to start talking about operating referendum. What we'll try to do for that night on April 6th is, the schedules permitting, we'll try to get Kelly Smith from Baker Tilly, our financial advisor, down to help provide some additional insight and information about the operating referendum, and you can talk that through and find out what some different tax impacts might be on residential property, commercial property, ag property. And just as a point, I know you remember this, but an operating referendum only taxes 1 acre in the household in the ag world. It doesn't tax ag production property. So that's different than a bond referendum. So April 6th, 6:30 p.m., Middle School Media Center, study session. The final thing is just an update on the superintendent search. As a reminder, beginning next Wednesday, the 26th of February, so the 26th, 27th, and 28th, you have signed up for time slots to review applications. The applications, I visited with MSBA staff today, are planning on delivering them to our office late in the afternoon on February 25th. So we'll have to have things ready and a system organized for you to look at those applications. You have signed up. You may want to check that out. I think we put the schedule at your spot here tonight. If that time doesn't work or you need a different time, just let Sarah know that. Second reminder in the superintendent search is the selection of candidates to be interviewed. That occurs at your special board meeting on Monday, March 2nd, and that's 6:30 p.m. in the middle school media center. At that meeting, you'll also give the final approval to the interview questions for round one, and you will undergo some interview training. And so we'll want to make sure, and Sarah, I'll have this down, but just as a reminder that, well, ETIV knows about it, but that ETIV and Keith Winter, as the chair people of those staff and community committees, know they'll need to be at the interview training as well. Then your round two, which is scheduled for March 12th, I've asked the MSBA staff to have a draft schedule of what that day will look like. And what we've talked about is that there would be an opportunity for the final either 2 or 3, depending upon whomever you select for that March 12th interview, to have a tour of the community. We'll do some school tours. There'll be an opportunity for staff and community members to ask questions of each of the final 2 or 3 candidates, and then you'll have your final interview in the evening or late afternoon and evening of March 12th. So we'll want to look at some of those sample schedules, and I'll try to get those out to you next week as well. We get a lot of questions about how many people have applied in visiting with Sandy Gunlock from MSBA staff today. There have been 25 applications that initiated and 16 have been completed. But what we also know about the application process is people routinely kind of decide, not decide, and then the weekend before the application is due at 11:59 p.m. on Monday, the 24th of February, they complete the application. So I feel good about those numbers, that you've got 16 completed. I'm confident that there will be, well, in the 20s of people who apply. And again, you're looking for 6 quality candidates that meet your candidate profile to interview on March 5th and 6th. That's great. Yeah. So that's what I've got. Any questions of me?
Okay. Board members? Around the table?
Not today.
Start. Nope. All right, me either. Upcoming meetings of the school board, I think we covered this, but special board meeting March 2nd, 6:30 at the middle school media center. Special board meeting Thursday, March 5th at 3:30 in the high school. Friday, March 6th at 3:30 in the high school. Special board meeting Thursday, March 12th. That's the second interview time at 3:30 at the middle school. Negotiations committee meeting Friday, March 13th at 3 p.m. in the district office. Negotiations committee meeting Saturday, March 14th at 1 p.m. in the district office.
And that's it, if needed.
If needed. And a regular board meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 16th, 6:30 p.m. In the governor's room of the community center.
Board Chair Leonard, just also note you have a policy review committee that is set for Monday, February 24th at 8 a.m. in the district office. Great.
Do we not have the mediation?
Yes, but it's not a public meeting. Okay. But we should mention that as well. And so Tim, Vicki, John, next Tuesday, 9 a.m. Mediation session with office support staff.
Yes.
Thank you. And these negotiations meetings are anticipated to work out a contract with our next superintendent. If we don't need them, we can cancel them. Those are committee meetings, so the three of you would work that out. Drew, you and I, Bill, Tracy would not go to that because it's not a full board member meeting, it's a committee meeting, so. Sound reasonable? Great.
All right.
Thank you very much. Well, we've gone around the table. We've heard everything that's on the agenda. Should we do something else?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I got a gavel. Motion to adjourn.
One of the things that strongly suggests the officers training was to get them a gavel.
We're asking that ourselves.
Yes.
We're trying to figure that one out, Dick.
That's not gonna work.
It's not good.
No, we've only had
Ice fishing.
I don't know.
That